Good afternoon, folks. I just wanted to do a video, perhaps the first in a series, in which I kind of geek out about my individual watches in greater depth with high definition video. It isn't quite a review. I don't have the patience or organization to do an official review, but it's just going to be sort of a ramble about the watch itself. You know, all of my watches I've owned now for at least a couple months. This is my most recent purchase, what you see in front of you. And I just wanted to, give a better sense of what the watch looks and feels like, my impressions of it, and just to share my love of these pieces. So, let's see. Oh, by the way, I'm listening to Snarky Puppy, which is, I cannot remember who recommended it to me, but one of my viewers recommended it, and I've just been really into them. They're kind of like a high-power jazz fusion band that started about maybe 8 to 10 years ago at a university in northern Texas, and now they're pretty well known. I think they won a Grammy for one of their songs. You can see they have some really impressive videos on YouTube. They have most of their albums they record live in studios with a studio audience, and just very, very, if you're at all a jazz nerd or a fusion nerd or a musician of any kind, you'll probably like Snarky Puppy. Anyways, back to the Breitling Blackbird. This watch I purchased, I don't remember the exact date, I think it was a couple months ago. It is an impressive beast. By the way, I apologize, it's almost 5 o'clock, so the light's getting a little dim, but hopefully it won't be too dim that I have to redo this video. Yes, this is an impressive beast. It's a little less than 44 millimeters across the bezel. It feels like a 44 to 45 millimeter watch. It's the type of watch, I mean, you have to have a solid sized wrist to wear it, but it works okay. Works fine for me. I'll put it on my wrist at the end later on. Yeah, this is my second Breitling. I also own the Crosswind Racing, which will make a brief appearance in a moment as we talk about the bezels. But you always know a Breitling. If you look at this watch, for anyone who is a watch person, who's a fan of watches and has a reasonable knowledge of the different watches that are out there, you'll say, oh, yeah, that's a Breitling. You won't mistake it for a Rolex or for an Omega, for a Panerai, a Tag, whatever. It has, and really, there's the distinct quality of Breitling has to be the bezel. They have this unique bezel with these little tabs. Somebody has told me the name of those twice, and I've forgotten twice. But you just always know. It's a very distinct look, and I can't think of a brand that makes homages to Breitling. For some reason, they've been able to avoid the homages. I could be wrong. There could be something out there. Let me just show this how it looks compared to the Crosswind Racing bezel. By the way, if anyone has any recommendations for a good, cheap tripod for a digital camera, please let me know. I have one of these little stretchy legs. It's like a 3-legged octopus type thing. It kind of looks like one of those creatures from War of the Worlds. But I can't get good angles. I want something that I can bend and twist and it will just be steady, Let me know. Something that's relatively affordable. Anyways, so you can see two variations on the Breitling bezel. The Crosswind Racing does not have the numerals, although it has numbers on the four directions, whereas this has east, south, west, and then the loom pip. This is a loom pip up there. But it's the same basic idea. You have the screws on the side, yeah. You have a raised little inner part to the bezel, and then you have this broader part. I'll do a video on this all by itself. It's definitely worthy of its own video. Look at that combination, the silver and the black. Those just go so well together. What a nice combination of watches. All right, we'll put you down for a second. So, I just personalized that watch. I spoke to it as if it was a living sentient being. What's wrong with me? I'm a watch obsessive. So yeah, the distinctness of Breitling also, you all know I'm a huge fan of Omega, and Omega has a very different look. For some reason I'm losing the focus there. Maybe it's my fingers. Anyways, Omega has a very, very different look. It has a more curvaceous quality to it, whereas Breitling has these angles, this what I like to call a geometric architecture to it. You can just see that all along. Like, look at how the am I almost there? Where is it? There we go. All right. You can just see the complexity there, right? There's so many different angles. There are some curves on the side, but it really has such a complex geometry. Although I think one of the things that appeals to me about Breitling, and this watch in particular, is it's complex without being overcomplicated. And what I mean by that is it holds together quite well. And most big designers will create chronographs that hold together pretty well, but sometimes they just get a little out of hand. And this one just really holds together well. But what I mean by this difference in the architectural look, here we have my Omega Seamaster chronograph. So here you have two very different looks. The Omega has, look at how the bezel has these curved, scalloped edges compared to the Breitling. Now, some people prefer one or the other. Some people prefer the Breitling geometric architecture. Some people prefer the Omega curves. Omega remains, I'll just say I like them both. They're both really gorgeous variations. They both have their own unique styles. I'm having trouble focusing. I had a first and second attempt at this video, and I was focusing better. It must be the dim light. So yes, this unique design, the geometric architecture, the bezel with this complex bezel. It's a 60 click bezel, and you can also see in the bracelet. You see the going back again to the Crosswind Racing. The Crosswind Racing has just a flat, and then it curves around. Whereas the Blackbird has these edged. You can see it right there. It's flat, and then it cuts in on either side. So it really adds to the complexity. Very comfortable bezel. The other thing I like about this model, and actually why I chose both of these models, is they're not highly polished like most Breitlings are. My biggest criticism of Breitling as a brand is just too many of their watches are super polished. Some people like that, I don't. I like more of a matte or brushed metal look. So this one has a nice, but I like some polish. I like a mixture. So for instance, you can see that the bezel has both. Let me just get my little watch tool here. It's called a wooden skewer. You remember when Archie Luxury was trying to sell these? I think he called them custom designed watch tools, and he was trying to sell them for like 40 bucks. This is a skewer that came in a pack of like 200 for like $3 or something like that. Anyways, so here you have this highly polished inner part of the bezel, and then the outer part is brushed metal. I don't know if it's brushed or matte. I think it's actually brushed. Gotta give this a better clean. If you've never cleaned your watch before, you can do it with a toothbrush and soap. Especially if it's, just make sure you have the crown pushers. Make sure everything's Loctite. Yeah, a water-resistant watch can take soapy water. It's a little nerve-wracking at first. You might think, wait, I shouldn't be doing this. Kind of like swimming in the ocean with a water-resistant watch, but that's what they're for, especially the dive watches. All right, so back to the Breitling. And you can see the side, for instance, is very highly polished, but I like it as a contrast to the rest. It's not this dominant, overwhelming feature. This side also has polish. Breitling also makes incredible pushers and crowns. Let's take a look at the main crown there. I apologize. Hopefully this will come to focus. Where are we? Where are we? There we go. You can see it. All right, so it's a bit of a dome crowned with these nice ridges to it. Just really a beautiful piece. And there's the polished case back with the Blackbird letters and the model number, which is A44359. That's A44359. So yeah, this is it's I think technically it's 43.7 millimeters across. It's got some heft to it, some weight to it, but it's just a comfortable piece. So what about the movement? This is technically a Breitling 44 movement, which is a modified 2892 ETA movement. Yes, it is a modified ETA movement, folks. It is not an in-house movement, but it's modified with two complications. One is the big date, which is very distinct, and I love it. I think it's a really cool, it just is so nicely balanced. And the other, of course, is the chronograph. So it's a modified movement. As you can see, the chronograph, it's the tri-compacts look, which is my favorite. I actually prefer that layout to what you have in the Omega or the Crosswind Racing. I love bi-compacts and tri-compacts. They're both great, but I love how that my Citizen flyback also has this layout. It just has a really nice look to it. So the movement, you know, ETA, the 2892 is the higher grade ETA base movement. The 2824 is what you'll see in most Tier 3 watches. In fact, you can almost be guaranteed that if you have a Tier 3 watch, it probably has a 2824 movement. And again, what I mean by Tier 3 is a watch that costs between about $500 and about $2,000. So a lot of brands like Hamilton, I think Oris actually might use Solita. I'm not sure what they use as their base movement. Hamilton, actually, a lot of the micro divers use the 2824. So if you get a micro diver, and it's the less expensive micro divers, the ones that are more in the 400 to 600 range, usually use the Japanese Miyota movement, which is made by Citizen. But if you're buying a micro diver and it's $600 or over, it's probably the 2824. So this is the 2892. It's a better, higher quality movement, higher up the line, so to speak. But it's modified with this Dubois-Dupraz chronograph function, plus the big date. So it's a really nice piece. And it is an expensive piece for a modified ETA. Most watches in this price range, which this is really new, I think this is really a lower end Tier 5 watch as far as the price goes. I kind of consider it a Tier 4 watch. I just feel like it feels more like, it feels like an upper end. You know, it's comparable, I would say, you know, in price and quality perhaps to like the Planet Ocean or some of the Aquaterras in the Omega world. It feels like it's a step up from, say, the Seamaster or the Tudors. But, you know, again, there's price and then there's quality. This to me, when I got this, I was surprised at just the quality of the build and the finish, and it was a step up. I mean, I think my Omega Seamasters are similar in quality, but it certainly was a step up from the Crosswind Racing, which I think is an older model, so that's part of it. Some of the newer models are just more finely done. Anyways, so yeah. So let's take a look at it on my wrist so you can get a sense of that. There you go. So my wrist is between 7¼ and up to almost 7½ depending upon how much ice cream I've been eating. It's probably, I would say, about 7⅓. It's a little bit bigger than 7¼ So you can see it's a nice solid presence on my wrist. It's not overly large. Remember that when you look at it with the camera, the fisheye makes it seem a little bit bigger than it actually is, but not too much. It actually works out pretty well. It's my big chunky watch. I love it. I went through I found that I kind of have a cycle with watches that there's the initial honeymoon where you get it and you're like, wow. Or even before that, you're like, I can't wait to get it. And then you get it and there's a slight edge of disappointment of like, wow, you know, getting the thing is not quite the same as lusting after it. But then there's like, then you have that first honeymoon phase where you realize what an incredible piece it is. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you're like, okay, this is nice, but you know. But I definitely had that with this. I was like totally wowed by it. And then I kind of got used to it, and it kind of just became a member of my rotation. And just in the last couple of weeks, I've been rediscovering just the beauty of it, and it's made me feel a little bit more relaxed about my collection. I'm gonna go through. This is probably another video, but I'm gonna really whittle down my collection quite a bit over the next month or two when I get off my ass and make some sales entries on Watch You Seek, or I might even actually put them up here if anyone is interested in buying the Oris or the Hamilton or the Citizen or the Ray Donovan. I might even be selling that, the Quartz Black Omega Seamaster. So there you go. There's my Breitling Blackbird. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you have any questions about the watch. It is, as I said, it's no longer being made, but it is a great piece, and I highly recommend it for those who are in. Good afternoon, folks. I just wanted to do a video, perhaps the first in a series, in which I kind of geek out about my individual watches in greater depth with high-definition video. It isn't quite a review. I don't have the patience or organization to do an official review, but it's just going to be sort of they have some really impressive videos on YouTube. They have most of their albums they record live in studios with a studio audience, and just very, very, if you're at all a jazz nerd or a fusion nerd or a musician of any kind, you'll probably like Snarky Puppy. Anyways, back to the Breitling Blackbird. This watch I purchased, I don't remember the exact date, I think it was a couple months ago. It is an impressive beast. By the way, I apologize, it's almost 5 o'clock, so the light's getting a little dim, but hopefully it won't be too dim that I have to redo this video. Yes, this is an impressive beast. It's a little less than 44 millimeters across the bezel. To Snarky Puppy, which is, I cannot remember who recommended it to me, but one of my viewers recommended it, and I've just been really into them. They're kind of like a high-power jazz fusion band that started about maybe 8 to 10 years ago at a university in northern Texas. And now they're pretty well known. I think they won a Grammy for one of their songs. You can see their ramble about the watch itself. You know, all of my watches I've owned now for at least a couple months. This is my most recent purchase, what you see in front of you. And I just wanted to, give a better sense of what the watch looks and feels like, my impressions of it, and just to share my love of these pieces. So, let's see. Oh, by the way, I'm listening